It is Tuesday, so it's time for a brand new edition of the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. Make sure you go and rate and subscribe the YouTube channel over on YouTube, youtube.com/at Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Loaded show today. A little bit later, we got Sam Farber from the Charlotte Hornets Radio Network coming in. The Hornets getting ready to restart the second half of their season. Thursday night, I will actually be in the house in Charlotte. Charlotte will be taking on the Houston Rockets and Kevin Durant at 7 p.m. at Spectrum Center, so I'll be there. So we got Sam coming in to preview the final part of the NBA season and can the Hornets make an actual run to get into the playoffs. But before that, Devils and Deacons Illustrated publisher Conor Oneill in the house. We got a loaded ACC slate. David Glenn from the North Carolina Sports Network in with me every Tuesday, and we'll just get in some ACC talk here. So let's go ahead and run the intro. It's the Desmond Johnson Show.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city need that. I've been number one, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you want and get your weed wet. I'm going harder than a martyr on the starter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's fourth and inches. I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And again, it is Tuesday, so it's the start of a beautiful week here in Zamunda, here on the Desmond Johnson Show. Desmond Johnson, I'm your host, along with David Glenn here with me on Tuesdays. Conor Oneill in the house from Deacons and Devils Illustrated, and I'm glad we got him in here today because we got a little Wake Forest stuff to talk about. We got a little Duke stuff to talk about. We got a lot of both to talk about here. We're just going to jump right into it. Sam Farber will be joining us here about 15 minutes from the Hornets Radio Network. Last week, point guard Chris Paul retired from the NBA after 20 plus seasons in the NBA, multiple teams. It had been reported he did not want to leave the area of Los Angeles for his final season. So it really came down to Clippers and Lakers. And when the Clippers thing kind of fell apart, kind of went any takers. So Paul decided that he would bow out and retire. I want to start off with you, Conor, in terms of what is the vibe in terms of what does Chris Paul still mean to Wake Forest University? Because I know he came back to Winston, and he is a Winston-Salem native. He graduated. He actually has a degree from Winston-Salem State, but he still, of course, has love for Wake Forest and the Winston-Salem and Clemens community in particular. Talk to me a little bit about what Chris Paul still means to the Wake Forest community, especially the basketball fans that remember the good days when Wake was, number one in the country, contending for ACC and all this other stuff, basically every year for a hot stretch there.
Yeah, I mean, he's, I don't know, maybe top 3 celebrated player in program history at this point, at least from the fans' perspective, right there with Tim Duncan and Randolph Childress. Rodney Rogers is up there too, but Rodney wasn't on the teams that won the ACC tournaments. Chris has he only stayed 2 years compared to Randolph and Tim being there for their entire careers. But what Chris went on to do in the NBA and representing Wake and Winston-Salem the way that he did, he's, I don't want to say godlike figure because I think that's a little overblown, but he is kind of a sub god to Wake's fan base just because of the hometown aspect, the way he kind of ascended once he got to the NBA and has always represented Wake.
I want you to expound on that a little bit, DG. Of course, part of reporting on ACC for years now. Talk to me a little bit about Chris Paul and why he was a little different compared to other point guards you've seen in the past in the ACC. What makes him so special? Like, what gave him that point guard nickname that he ended up getting while he was basically in the NBA? What separated him?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Great leader. Very good defender. Remember, he led the NBA in steals probably 6 or 7 times. And even though it is brought up that he did not win an NCAA title at Wake, he did not win an NBA title at that level, he is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. right? So it's not like he doesn't have the winning gene in him. When he was surrounded by other world-class players on Team USA, he helped those teams break through. And if you're all NBA guys 10 times or more, you are what? Not only are you one of the greatest, I'll say, players from the state of North Carolina, and I don't mean just, played college ball here. That's more like a rental. I mean a guy who grew up here and played in Clemens, North Carolina, and played at Wake Forest. I think he's up there. If we made an all-time state of North Carolina team, again, guys who truly were here, high school forward, Michael Jordan's on that team, and David Thompson's on that team, and James Worthy's on that team, and Steph Curry is on that team, and Chris Paul's on that team. And we would, there's a whole bunch of others we'd like on that roster.
It's a great actual debate. Just sitting there trying to figure that out. We kind of almost started it on Believe in Hills Hoops. We were trying to do a North Carolina basketball Mount Rushmore or whatnot. I had to kind of school B-Dot and PJ on who Dominique Wilkins was and who David Thompson actually was. They were really trying to clown me into taking him off. I'm like, are you serious? Like, David Thompson's considered the greatest ACC player of all time. Like, Jordan has said he's patterned his game after David Thompson. So the fact that you included Chris in there, really, after 2 years at Wake, I mean, but those 2 years at Wake were two of the best years that Wake has had in college basketball. And then I tried to figure out where he places in terms of NBA career. Like, where is he in terms of point guard ranking? Because he is second in assists all time. I believe steals too, if I'm not mistaken. I know he is for assists. And the guy that's ahead of him, John Stockton, that record that he owns for assists, that's one of those all-time unbreakable records in my mind in sports. Like, it's just, if you look down the list of like the people that are behind Stockton, and Chris Paul, he's second, but he's still like 4,000 assists or something away from Stockton's record. There's no one that's active that's not like 40 or 37 years old that's in the top 10. Like, there's just no one that's even remotely close to even trying to track this down. And for Chris to be second is commendable. It should be used in his resume. But I couldn't put him in like my top 3 point guards of all time. Because he doesn't have a ring. He never won a ring, and he only got to one NBA final, and that was later on in his career with Phoenix. He did elevate pretty much every team he was on in the NBA, from the Clippers to that strange run in Oklahoma City to, when he was with Houston and they almost knocked off Golden State, but he got hurt, like that kind of. So he does have a place in the pantheon in terms of you can't describe the NBA without talking about Chris Paul, in my opinion. But I had to put Magic number 1. I put Stockton number 2. Well, actually, I had Isaiah number 2. And I actually had Steph Curry at 3. And a lot of people were pushing back on that to me. But I'm like, Steph Curry is a point guard. Like, he was a point guard at Davidson. He's a point guard at Golden State. The Splash Brothers, Clay was the 2. Like, Steph was the 1. Like, and people want to push him into shooting guard category because he shoots the ball a lot. But I'm like, no, he's a point guard. He's a shooting point guard. He scores. He scores from 45 feet out, but he scores. So I have those as my 3, and all 3 of them have rings, accolades. Steph is the only unanimous MVP in league history. So I couldn't put Chris above them. But Chris, I probably could put him in my top 5. And that'd probably be like my top 5 favorite point guards. So on that end, I can see that. What do you think he does next? Because it's kind of curious to me that Winston-Salem State just fired their head coach, like literally around the same time that Paul announced his retirement. And we're talking about, well, what should he do next? He feels like he's kind of got an inner coach in him, don't he? Like, it feels like that's kind of where he might go. Could you see Chris Paul coaching like down the road here? Literally, like in Winston?
I guess. I've actually seen him on the bench. You should ask PJ about this next time you have him on. Chris was a guest coach in the TBT with like 4 or 5 years ago. I want to say it was. I was over at the field house in Greensboro watching.
He has an AAU team like here in Winston. Like actually, PJ did talk about this. Go check out Believe in Hills Hoops from last week. He actually did bring up something along that line that that maybe, and Dot went to Winston-Salem State, so they're like, come to Winston-Salem State. It's open. It's right here. You own part of the dash already, so like, come on in here. So I don't know. Did you think he would ever entertain being a coach?
I'll be mildly surprised if he ends up going, deep dive with, if that's his full next chapter. I'll be surprised. I'll put it that way, because we've all seen great athletes at that fork in the road where you just have to figure out what's next. And one thing that Chris has always had is a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit. And you very rarely see a guy both throw himself into entrepreneurism and throw himself into being a head coach at a high level. Because here in my backyard, they have, you guys were talking about TBT, the basketball tournament. There is the tournament in soccer here. And Chris is part of the brain trust for creating that thing, expanding that thing. Like, he is deeply, deeply invested. And it's, for those who don't know, it's really kind of an unusual format. People from all over the world, men's division, women's division, mixed division, retired legends, college legends, and they just get together here in the Triangle area, and they play these like winner take all soccer tournaments that are like 7 figures for the winner. Like, it's become a big deal. Anyway, that's just one example of his entrepreneurial spirit. So, I mean, the good news for him is when you're that multi-talented, the world is your oyster, as the old saying goes. If he wanted to get into scouting, GM type stuff, he could. If he wanted to dive into coaching, he could. If he wants to be just a big businessman, he can.
You also
and that underlines, I mean, not only we can celebrate him as one of the great NBA point guards of all time, one of the great ACC point guards of all time, one of the best in the state of North Carolina to ever come through our high school ranks, no matter how what terms you put on making those judgments. He's on all these lists, man. Like, he is just an incredible dude, and obviously a stunningly successful basketball player. So I just hope he finds joy and fun and success in whatever he does choose. But unlike a lot of people, he has a long list of options to choose from.
I just went to go look because I remember. Well, go ahead, Connor, real quick, because I know you were trying to say a little point there.
You also got to remember, Little Chris is an up and coming basketball recruit. I can't remember if it's class of 28 or 29, but like the guy that I was there when Chris's jersey was retired at Wake, and he went into the Hall of Fame a few years later. But the guy who was a 3-year-old kid walking around his dad in a little suit is now like a legitimate prospect to play Division I basketball. So Chris might want to just kind of go to games and be a dad and support little Chris that way.
Wow. And I went to go look because we're talking about what could he do, like in this post thing. He could do nothing because in 20 years, Chris Paul earned $408 million in NBA salary.
And that's only NBA salary. That's not State Farm.
Right. That's not even counting State Farm, Jordan Brand, Nike, and a bunch of other things. He's 5th highest in NBA history in terms of earnings behind LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and James Harden. He got a 4-year, $120 million extension with the Suns in 2021. 4-year, $159 million with the Rockets in 2018. He was the president of the Players Association, if I'm not mistaken, too, for the longest. So, so really, maybe Chris buys a team. Like maybe he gets with LeBron and KD, and they buy the Vegas franchise to keep rumoring to come to the NBA. Some quick shots. Let me get over to college basketball because we got some loaded stuff this week. Before we get to Saturday, so we got a big matchup on Saturday tonight. North Carolina goes to Raleigh to take on NC State. I'm not sure what to do with this game. DG, start me off here. How should I feel here? Because, of course, Caleb Wilson's out. I did get some word from Hubert Davis from his show where pretty encouraging, said he's going to return soon. Caleb Wilson is actually already learning how to play with a cast on his non-shooting hand. And Hubert said that he looks great. He's in practice. And it's just a matter, he'll be back on the floor soon. So I was thinking he might be out up until the next Duke game, which would be in about 3 weeks. He might be back before that. He will not be back tonight. And we don't know about Henry Vassar yet either, who missed this past weekend with, I think he had remnants of the flu and some sort of lower extremity injury that they didn't really go into detail with. What are you hearing in terms of maybe Vassar's availability tonight? And can this Carolina team that you saw this weekend, can they beat this NC State team without the best front court in the nation?
Probably not is the short answer to that last question. And I've seen enough State Carolina games that I've come to expect the Tar Heels to beat the Wolfpack in basketball. I mean, it has been a hammer-nail relationship. During the Roy Williams era, it was crazy. Like, you were shocked if the Wolfpack beat the Tar Heels. But I think it's 34-6. Carolina over NC State in the last 40, which is that's a lopsided rivalry no matter how you put it. I bring that up because I feel the opposite tonight. NC State has one of the most diverse, hard to stop offenses in the entire ACC. And one of Carolina's challenges this year has been being difficult to play against, meaning the Carolina defense. So it's not like you can just game plan for a guy at State. It's Darian Williams and Quadir Copeland and Van Allen Lubin inside and others. I mean, Matt Abel off the bench. In some lineups, all 5 guys can score for the Wolfpack. And without Caleb Wilson, who is a good defender and a shot blocker and keeps the opponent off the offensive glass, I think the Heels are going to have a hard time slowing down NC State. And then the question becomes, can the Heels just keep up by scoring a ton? Because State's not great defensively either. And I'm not sure they can do that without Caleb Wilson. So it'll be fun. And a lot of those guys, everybody but Seth Trimble, is experiencing this rivalry for the first time. And I can promise you it's a lot different for Carolina players when this game is played over in Raleigh. It's a whole different experience. So I like the Wolfpack to win this game. And the reality is Pitt was the only remaining easy team on Carolina's schedule. All these other games, Virginia Tech, Clemson, even Syracuse on the road, obviously Duke at the end of the regular season. Like every game is a challenge from here on out in the regular season for Carolina. And that's where we're going to get a much better understanding of what they look like without Caleb Wilson.
And breaking news that just happened about a little under an hour ago, 5-star senior recruit Dylan Mingo has committed to North Carolina, giving Hubert Davis a top 15 recruit for the 4th consecutive recruiting class. Mingo made the announcement on First Take on ESPN this morning, choosing the Heels over Baylor, Penn State, and Washington. And he will join, like as I said before, Hubert's brought in a top 15 recruit in 4 straight classes, starting off with Elliot Cadeau in 2023, in Jackson in 2024, and Caleb Wilson in 2025. Let's go over to Elliot Cadeau and Michigan, who will be taking on the Duke Blue Devils on Saturday. And this is a number 1 versus number 3 matchup in February in the middle of conference slate. You get Duke and Michigan. Get us set for this, Connor. Heavyweight battle. Is Duke as good as advertised? Like, because this Michigan team has been plowing through everybody all year. So is Duke, really. I mean, they really only got caught. The Texas Tech game, they got ran down towards the end, and then the Carolina game, kind of a similar type fashion. But everything else, Duke has just kind of been in cruise control, it feels like, most of this season. How worried are you about Duke against this Michigan team on a neutral court? Shire seems to be pretty good when it comes to neutral court big matchups. Give us your take on Duke versus Michigan this Saturday.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a heavyweight fight that comes down to the last few minutes, and the last, the one guy that gets a hand on a loose ball that tips the scale one way or the other is probably going to be the difference. I mean, this is kind of why we love college basketball, because it delivers matchups like this. And I love the fact that we're getting one of these on February 21st and not November 21st.
Right.
It's going to be so much, these teams are so much different. They're so much more advanced than they were in the first month or 2 of the season when they're just learning how to play together. Like, this is a little appetizer for what we'd see a month and a half later. Like, this is a Final Four type matchup, and it's Final Four Saturday with Arizona and Houston playing. I don't know if that game's earlier or later, but just, awesome matchup that we get to see. I would give Michigan the slight edge because I've watched Michigan quite a bit this year. They have an alien playing center. Like, the things that they can do defensively with Ade Mara in the middle, just it allows you to take so much more risk. And it's kind of what Duke has been able to do when they had Derek Lively and then when they had Kamen Malawach in the middle. Like, when you have somebody in the middle of your defense that can erase your mistakes and turn them into strengths and turn them into fast breaks, it's just such an advantage. And then, I mean, Duke has the advantage of having the best player in the country. And Cam Boozer goes out there and he's able to give you 22 and 12 like he did last night against Syracuse. And you're just kind of like, oh, okay, he had a decent night.
Doesn't even feel like it. Yeah.
He was 8 for 10 from the field and had a double-double at halftime. Like, it was just that kind of night for him.
It's crazy. Like, and I keep trying to talk myself out of Cam Boozer being the best player because I'm looking at, like, who would I build an NBA franchise around out of all these freshmen?
It's such a different conversation.
Like, yeah, it really is. It really is.
The projectability to what they'll be in the NBA, it's kind of like Darren Peterson and AJ DeBonta have higher upside. right now, the player that you want on your team to win a game in college basketball, no question is Cam Boozer.
You can't really defend him. He really only has like 2 or 3 moves, but you can't stop them. Like what he's doing. He's got that little drive and that little kind of dip coming from the left side, and he just kind of puts his head down and just kind of, and he can shoot threes. So it's like, what do you do with him? You know?
Yeah,
so,
there's little stopping him.
And that's I'm glad you mentioned that Arizona is taking on Houston. Houston's number 2 in the poll this week. Arizona's number 4. With Arizona, Houston, and Michigan Duke games on Saturday, it'll be just the 5th time in AP poll history that there'll be 2 top 4 matchups on the same day. So we've got a lot to look forward to on Saturday. Follow Conor's work on X. What is your handle again one more time? Because I always get it messed up because you got it.
Conor Oneill _DI. And the DI goes for
yeah, because I think some people think it's D1 and some other stuff. So I want to make sure it was correct. Follow him throughout the week for news on Wake Forest athletics and Duke athletics as the publisher of Deacons and Devils Illustrated. Appreciate you coming through, Conor.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And there he goes. That's Conor Oneill from Devils and Deacons Illustrated. And we will flip the script, get over to the NBA, and bring on our friend Sam Farber, who we haven't had a chance to have on in a while. And I'm so happy that we have a chance to have you on today because the Hornets are the talk of the town. Like, I don't know if we've ever had a conversation, Sam, where the Hornets were this hot, like nationally, in terms of recognition and what they're doing. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's always very forward-looking and always very much, me kind of talking to myself about what could be potentially if it all came together. Now, at long last, it kind of seems like it is. So good to be talking to you again, and glad we bought stock early in this one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's been me and you. We're the ones out there like, just give them some time. You let them be healthy and we'll see what we have. And it's just been like a 5-year run of us just kind of waiting. And now they're here. They're healthy. So let's set the scene up here. The Hornets are 9th in the East. The season will resume for them on Thursday. Again, I'm going to actually be in Charlotte. I'm taking the wife down to Charlotte to watch Charlotte versus Houston. It's a 7:00 game. Kevin Durant in town. Was not blacked out. So I was able to get our tickets through the Hornets radio network. And we'll be at Spectrum to watch that. I really wanted to be in Spectrum to hear it while the Hornets are playing the way they're playing. Because last year we went, I think it was the Pacers. It was around the same time of the year. But, of course, Sam, at this time of the year, half the roster was injured. They were using 2-way players and G League players. Like, we didn't even know half the roster that was playing. And so it kind of reflected the play. I'm not expecting that on Thursday. I expect, both teams are jockeying for position in the playoffs. They're 3 games behind the 7th seed Orlando, 2.5 behind Miami. The Hornets are the only team, I did not know this, the Hornets are the only team in the NBA to have never won a division crown, like ever, Southeast or Central Conference. When they were really good in the 90s, that was the Jordan Bulls. And Miami has basically had a grip on the conference going forward after that when they became the Hornets again. I saw that the Hornets would probably need to go 20-7 over the last 27 games to probably make the top 6 seeds to avoid the play-in. Can they? Do you think this unit could go 20? They just went 12-1 or whatever it was in January. Do you think they could go 20-7 over the rest of this season from what you've seen with your own eyes and clinch a top 6 seed?
I mean, can they? Yes. I mean, I'm a math minor, so I'm a big believer. If it's mathematically possible, then it's possible. So yes, could it be done? Sure. You look at some of the upcoming opponents. Houston, Cleveland, right out of the gate, particularly without Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate. That's not easy. So we'll see how the Hornets handle those first 2 games. But then after that, you've got a lighter schedule. You look at many of the teams that they've got on the horizon. It's not Oklahoma City coming to town. They've got 1 game against Detroit that's at the very, very end of the season. We don't know what the motivation will be for the Pistons. Kind of think we have an idea based off the way the last game went. But in terms of will it matter for them for making the first seed or anything like that, we really don't know. So I think things set up pretty good for Charlotte to not be dealing with too many teams that are just, clearly the class of the NBA, and that on any night, everyone else in the league is going to be an underdog against. But to win at this level that the Hornets have been, I don't know that you can assume that. My general rule of thumb is if you are a elite team, trying to host all the way through the playoffs, 1 seeds, you're probably winning 75% of your games. If you are in the top 6, you're probably winning 2/3 of your games. And if you're a play-in tournament team, you're probably winning 50% of your games. Well, Charlotte's right about there. So to say they're going to continue to play like a 1 seed for the last 2 months of the season, I think that's ambitious for anyone outside of Oklahoma City. But is it impossible? No.
DG?
Sam, I think a lot of people are excited for, among other reasons, that 2 of the last 3 years, especially, the Hornets got their high first round pick right. I watched Con Oneill throughout his freshman year at Duke. I would have guessed he'd be a good NBA player, but I will be the first to admit I did not think he would be a candidate for NBA Rookie of the Year. From your front row seat, how do you explain both what you expected he would do well, but how has he broadened those horizons? Because he's not just doing a couple of things well. I saw him with Cooper Flagg last night at the Duke-Syracuse game. Those guys are the top 2 candidates for NBA Rookie of the Year, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is the number 1 skill in the NBA is the thing he does the best, and that's shoot the basketball. No matter what, no matter how good an athlete you are, no matter, every intangible in the world, if you can't shoot, you're going to have a short career. And so Con is the best at what we value the most in the NBA. And I think people will talk themselves around, we can teach so-and-so how to shoot. Con doesn't need to be taught. He knows how to shoot. He's one of the best in the world already at it. So that's number 1, I think, for his fast start. He's a better athlete than I think people gave him credit for. That's number 2. And then third, I think the intangibles that the Hornets placed so much importance on have really shown through. His competitive nature, his drive to improve on a daily basis. Those are things that largely we say you can't teach, and I think that's more often than not borne out. So he's the ultimate competitor. He's number 1 in his class, far and away, in the number 1 attribute, I would say, for the NBA game. And the biggest maybe accelerator for him here as of late has been the improved health of the team. Con's not someone who, and I'm not suggesting Cooper Flagg is thriving because he's playing more of a solo act than he otherwise would have been charted out to be. But clearly he's getting more shots and he's getting more touches than would be the case if Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving had been healthy from day one. For Con Oneill, yes, he got more touches and looks early on because there were less games with Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball available. But as those 2 guys have become available on a consistent basis, we've not seen a letdown at all with Con. He's just a very, very efficient, leading top 3 or 4 option on an NBA team. And so his numbers, I think, are going to stand the test of time. And in my opinion, whether there's an injury to Cooper Flagg or not, with what Con has done in terms of shooting the 3-point shot as a rookie, the way he's going to obliterate this record, and the fact that the Hornets are turning it around, I think are the leading arguments for him to win it over Cooper Flagg, even if Cooper remains healthy.
Yeah, because I was going to say Cooper's probably going to win most or the Rookie of the Year award, but Con is the most valuable.
Is he?
Well, I don't know, actually. You know what? Maybe.
Let's put it this way. I'm a huge fan of Cooper Flagg. He put almost 50 on the Hornets. I think he did put 50. It was a ridiculous game. He was incredible. He's a great player. His numbers are not largely better than Con Oneill. He's missed a couple extra games. Con scored a few extra points. Cooper's averaging maybe an extra point per game more. That's not, to me, enough of a difference to override the fact that Con has taken a franchise that hasn't made the postseason in 10 years and he's put him in a postseason position. That Con has taken a record that has constantly been rewritten since Steph Curry stepped on the stage in terms of rookie 3-point shooting, and he has taken it to a level no one has ever. He's like 4th now. So he is within 25, right? I mean, he's within 25 made threes of knocking this thing out of the park. He cannot play for a month, and he's probably going to get it. So, to do something that no one's ever seen before from a rookie. We've seen guys score 20 points per game and be really, really good athletes and do these kinds of things on teams that end up right back in the lottery. We largely haven't seen people do what Con's doing. And to me, I think that's worthwhile, making him the Rookie of the Year.
So Sam Farber joined us from the Hornets Radio Network. You can actually hear the Charlotte Hornets for free in the Triad via Tobacco Road Sports Radio on WWBG 1470 AM. You can hear Sam and the rest of the crew for pretty much the entire Hornets schedule. So there's 27 games left. Again, Hornets Rockets this Thursday. I think it's a 7:00 tip, if I'm not mistaken. And you'll be able to hear that here in the Triad on WWBG. Sam, I wanted you to give us a main thought about a couple of players on the team in terms of what's the first thing you think of when you think of that name now in relation to what they've meant to the Charlotte Hornets and this roster and this, I don't even want to call it a rebuild anymore. It's like a turnaround in terms of them becoming the hunters as opposed to the hunted. And I got to start off with LaMelo Ball because all this to me starts with LaMelo. And it's funny because it feels like a tale of two seasons because early in the season, there was a lot of talk of Hornets fans kind of getting tired of it. He was hurt again. There was some talk about trades. You know, I remember, would you trade LaMelo for Ja Morant because their contracts kind of match up? Would you swap them? That kind of thing. And that turned to LaMelo easing back in. Shout out to Charles Lee with the minutes restriction and bringing him off the bench and everything. And apparently that's kind of worked because now that starting five, we all know that starting five, they're like 13-1 or something when they play together. Give me your main thought when you hear the name LaMelo Ball when it comes to the 25-26 season.
Yeah, I mean, he's the maestro, and he's building to a crescendo right now in terms of his level of play and his ability to orchestrate the offense. I mean, he is the perfect point guard in the sense that he is constantly looking to move the ball up the floor, to find better options, and he can score it on his own. So he forces you to honor his ability to make crazy shots, deep shots, cover him the full length of the floor while also forcing you to stretch yourself and cover every inch of the hardwood beyond him because he's liable to find someone running backdoor or running to a spot to shoot. I mean, it's a big part of the reason why Miles Bridges and Con Knippel and Brandon Miller are all having really, really strong seasons. It's because LaMelo puts him in a position to succeed. So I think LaMelo has gotten an unfair grade in recent years because he's either been hurt and unable to show his level of improvement consistently, or his teammates have been hurt and he's been unable to, if you're orchestrating a symphony and there's no one there to play the instruments, then you're just a guy waving a baton. So, he's out there and he's got some really world-class musicians around him right now, and everything is sounding a whole heck of a lot better versus other instances where, he might make the right pass, but if the guy catching the ball isn't ready to make the shot or able to make the shot as consistently as a Brandon Miller, which mind you, few are, it sounds and looks quite a bit different.
Let me ask this one for you. Or go ahead, DJ.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not 100% sure if you guys have already hit this topic on a different visit, but there's no way we can't ask Sam about the Kobe White transaction because
we hadn't.
That was less than 2 weeks ago. I mean, obviously the guy was born in North Carolina, raised in North Carolina. We saw him in a UNC uniform. This is a big deal to add a cool piece to a successful team. Just what are your general thoughts about why they wanted him and how he fits the puzzle?
Well, to hear from the man himself, we have Jeff Peterson, president of basketball operations on the Hornets Hivecast, which is the official podcast of the Charlotte Hornets, available wherever you get your podcast. You can go check that out and hear from Jeff himself on what made Kobe so valuable. But, from my perspective, unfortunately, we haven't seen him on the court just yet. But there are a lot of similarities, I would say, to Colin Sexton, who was the person going the other way in the deal. I think, with Kobe, he's someone who has shown an ability to come off bench more regularly. I thought Colin did a really good job of it, but that's something Kobe has maybe a bit more reps with, and particularly here for this stretch run, that could be of value for the Charlotte Hornets. I think long-term, the team looks at him as a player in or entering his prime. They wanted his bird rights. They wanted the ability to control things. One term you hear a lot is pre-free agency. Free agency doesn't really exist anymore. The guys that command the kind of salaries that are at the top of the list, they want max dollars, which means staying with the team that owns your bird rights. So more often than not, teams are not signing a guy. They are coming to an agreement with a guy and then going back to that guy's team and saying, okay, how do we make this deal work? Well, by getting him on the front end, not suggesting that Kobe's going to be a max salary guy or anything like that, but it does create an easier avenue to negotiate with him, an easier avenue to go above the salary cap and retain him versus having him hit the open market and then trying to outbid teams that maybe have more cap room or butt up against a ceiling or an apron, something like that wouldn't necessarily be the case if you already had his rights.
And I'm glad you mentioned Kobe because he was one of the names out on this list, DG. And for people that don't know, Kobe White, I think still is the state leader in North Carolina high school points scored. And he has been now for 3 or 4 years. So he is a bucket. And when they got him, I was like, ooh, that's a great fit, with everything you just described, DG. But also I was thinking LaMelo's injury history. And, if LaMelo gets hurt, if you've got a Kobe White there, you don't really miss a whole lot bringing Kobe in. You actually might gain a little bit scoring wise in terms of bringing him on board. Doesn't really seem like it disrupts the chemistry of what they have going on with that main rotation by sliding Kobe in there. He has not played yet, and hopefully he will be available Thursday. I haven't seen anything about him being available, not available, but I think I'd heard Coach Lee mention that they were kind of aiming for that, for him to be in after the All-Star break. The other name I had down was actually Moussa Diabate, because one of the things that we've talked about with this roster the past 3 or 4 years is that they haven't had a center that they could depend on. And lo and behold, he was kind of on the roster the whole time. And just kind of once he got into that rotation with Miles Bridges and LaMelo and Con, they just kind of started to click. And it's crazy when you watch it on X or you see a clip on Facebook or something, and you're watching the Hornets nowadays. It's just the ball's like zip, 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 zip. Like the ball's just moving around. And I don't mind it if they're shooting 45 threes or 60 threes a game or whatever, if there was 4 or 5 passes and it's the right shot. It's the ones where that game last year I went to, literally they were coming down the court and just jacking threes. Like literally both sides. Indiana was doing the same thing. And they had to have shot like 90 threes between the two teams in that game. This feels more like in the motion of the offense. And it feels like Moussa has a lot to do with that. Thoughts on his development and becoming the starter and one of the main cogs of this team?
Well, development's the key word, because we're so accustomed now in this present generation of making decisions on kids when they're 16 years old and deciding that's going to be the ultimate decider for the remainder of their career, and we're so focused in on whatever a guy shows in his first year in college or the NBA, that's determinative of what he's going to be, and encouraging guys to transfer or move on for like that. That's all just kind of part of the process. And Moose is a guy who was a one and done at Michigan, I think one and done, maybe 2, but he didn't last there very long. Goes into the NBA draft. He's a 2nd round pick, goes to a Clippers team that, had some other option at his position. So he largely plays in the G League, takes time to develop, and doesn't get kept after a couple of years. Charlotte picks him up on a 2-way contract, not expecting all the centers to get hurt in the first month, but they do. And Moussa comes in and becomes a real bright spot. And the thing I really enjoy the most about him is, everyone comes into the NBA envisioning themselves, or at least it seems to me they do, that they're going to be LeBron or they're going to be Kevin Durant. And so they're trying to work on every single aspect of their game at all times. And maybe they don't reach their full potential because they're trying to be something more than what they are in the moment. Well, Moussa, since he's gotten into Charlotte, he has been laser focused. I'm going to be the best rebounder in the game. I'm going to get anything that comes off the glass, and I'm going to be a quality defender. And he goes out there and does those. And he's built on the other parts of his game. He's made a 3 this year. He's shown a little bit more range. He's shown some more offensive moves. But largely, those are the things that he can do that he is just better at than the majority of people in the NBA. And there's not a lot of guys who find those things about themselves and are able to accentuate it, sometimes at the expense of other areas of their own personal game. So I think with Moussa, he has turned himself into one of the preeminent offensive and defensive rebounders in the NBA. To your point, he's not the guy standing out there on the 3-point arc, but he's the one who gets the rebounds when there's a miss and sends it right back out there again.
That's what I want. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, like he knows his job. Now, if he gets it and he's wide open with the rim, he'll throw it down. But if there's 2 guys down there with him, which there largely are now because people have to commit so many resources to keeping him off the glass, that means if he gets the ball, someone's open. And he has become really, really good at finding that guy. They just kick swing and find the right shot. And if Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball and Con Knippel are taking open threes, I like the result.
This is crazy because I'm trying to think of a time, DG, where it was so great to be a sports fan in North Carolina. Like the Panthers kind of in on a positive note, and they give the city that wild card weekend with Cam Newton returning. The Hornets are on fire, and we both know what it's like in the state of North Carolina when the Hornets are good. We've talked about it on the show before. It's different than when the Panthers are good. Like, it's a different vibe altogether, and the Hornets are getting there. Like, if the Hornets continue on the track they're doing right now, I can only imagine between that, Duke and Carolina are back in terms of being, the anchor of the ACC. The ACC seems like it's back. So it's like all this stuff's going on. The Kings are good. So all this stuff's happening at the same time. And I can't remember a time when all of this was happening at the same time. So I'm just going to continue to live the fever dream and just, just let it keep going.
I wish my memory was good enough to line up all of those things, from any given year.
There's an article right there.
Years ago. But I will tell you this. In the early 1990s, remember the Hornets had that run where they had drafted Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning. They were fun. They were interesting. They were in the playoffs. They had high-end talent. They had a great coach. There was a buzz, pardon the pun, across our state around the Hornets.
Yeah.
At the same time, as a state, and I was a transplant here at 20 years old, and my eyes were so wide open because the Hornets were winning. Duke was winning back-to-back national titles. Carolina won the next year, 93.
Mm-hmm.
We soon got the NHL just as a franchise, later 90s. We had recently got the Carolina Panthers, so the NFL was here for the first time. I'm probably forgetting things, but man, my eyes were wide open in those early 90s, and the Hornets were a fundamental piece of that puzzle.
Hell, Wake and State were good in the 90s. I mean, you're talking Randolph Childress and, those guys at Wake and,
mid-90s Wake was great.
Yeah, and like State Chris Corciani and Rodney Monroe and so the Big Four was cooking like back then too. So this is reminiscent of them, but that was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
We haven't had it in 30 years. So like I remember it clearly. Like I'm in high school, all that's going on, and just enjoying it, thinking this is never going to end. And then it just ended for like 20 plus years. And now we're back and now things are cooking. So Sam, I'm glad we had a chance to get you on. I don't know if I have a way to get down to Radio Road to say hey to you on Thursday. I think the last game I went to last year, I saw you down there because our seats are like up here. So I saw you down there. I was like, I don't have a way to get down there and say hey to him, but if I can figure it out, I'll come down and say hey to you on Thursday. So we'll have Hornets Rockets Thursday night, 7:00 on the Hornets Radio Network here on WWBG 1470 AM in the Triad. That's mainly Guilford County. So if you're in Greensboro or parts of Guilford, you'll be able to hear the game there. Make sure you check them out. Kevin Rant coming to town with a very young Houston Rockets squad that's pretty good. So it'll be a good matchup for the Hornets. Still no Miles Bridges, still no Musa Diabate. They're still serving their suspension, so I won't see them on Thursday. They'll be back next week, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're missing 4 games, so they should be back at the end of next week. So we'll have the full group back together again there. You can follow Sam on X as well. Sam, appreciate you coming through, and I'm hoping we'll be able to get you on to talk some Charlotte Hornet playoffs in a couple of weeks. So it's a fun time to be alive.
It sure is. Right now we're in play-in position, but it would sure be a lot of fun to have them back in the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. Desmond, DG, appreciate it as always.
I would not mind Charlotte
See you,
Detroit
Thank
series, best of 7. That would be pretty fun at this point. They're kind of building a little thing against each other, so we'll see what happens. So that's Sam Farber from the Hornets Radio Network. We're out of here. I will be back Friday. Isaac Schad from the Locked on Heels podcast will join me. We'll talk about the weekend in the ACC coming up and much more. So we'll have all that there for you then.